Welcome, true crime lovers. This is Underage and Full of Rage. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Underage and Full of Rage, the podcast where the convicted are minors and their crimes are anything but. I am your host, Becky, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Adam.
Hello.
So today's story is a doozy. We are in Wadsworth, Ohio. I have never heard of it. Have you?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. I looked it up and it looks like it's a 22-minute drive west of Akron. And according to the tourist checklist, Wadsworth is a charming city with plenty to offer. It has beautiful parks, unique shops, and there are plenty of activities for families and visitors, including outdoor adventures, tasty dining, and taking in the rich history. As of this year, there is a reported 25,133 people living there, which that's not that much, right?
Doesn't sound like that much.
Like, it's not necessarily like, I guess, small town, but it's not
I wouldn't call it a small
metropolis,
town, but it's definitely not like a major.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just like probably like an average just town.
Sounds like a commuter
guess.
town, like a suburb.
Well, funny you should say that because my next line was going to be about how like they've seen steady growth year after year, and I'm assuming it is people
Leaving
living,
Akron and
yeah,
moving to the burbs.
commuting to the cities, because also Cleveland, Akron, and Canton are all close to this town. So like Akron,
So it's probably commuters from everywhere.
yeah, because Akron's only 22 minutes, as I said, and then Canton is 35, and then Cleveland's just under an hour.
That's like, those are
So
all
it's
normal
gotta be,
commutes.
yeah. So I'm assuming it's just that like people are leaving the cities and moving there to then
Building
commute to
them
their,
up.
yeah, commute back to their job. So when looking into the crime stats here too, murder is like shockingly low. I guess not shockingly low. I would just say crazy low. I just expect everywhere to have
To have at least,
to have some murder,
a
and
handful.
yeah, and I said what was shocking was that most years here they have 0 listed, which is pretty crazy. I
That
thought
is pretty crazy.
that's like impressive, I guess.
Yeah.
And like other years only have 1. So, for instance, the one we cover in
Pretty
2000,
safe city.
yeah, and the one we cover in 2018 is the only one reported for that town that year.
That's insane.
Yeah, like when I was looking at it, I was like, I think I want to move to Wadsworth, Ohio. This place sounds pretty safe.
Definitely sounds safe.
So I wouldn't, but I mean, I could be like the other crime, like petty crime and robbing, like
Property crimes through the roof.
yeah, that could all be. They could be raping a bunch of people, just not killing them. So I mean, I don't know, but
you never know.
at least you're not dying. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So on April 9th, 2018, police receive a phone call from the family of 98-year-old Margaret Douglas. They are very concerned because they haven't heard from her in some time and would like to request a wellness check for her. According to Margaret's niece, Margaret was an active 98-year-old who loved reading and gardening. She was really looking forward to turning 100. I feel like when you hear 98, you probably automatically think old and feeble.
Yeah.
Right. Margaret was not this though. She was still very independent and capable of handling her own shit. It actually sounds like she was a young 98. My main thing was finding out that she still handled her own finances, which I feel like
That's pretty crazy for a 98-year-old.
yeah, that means you're still sharp as a whip at that point. Like that says a lot.
Yeah.
I can only pray that I'm like that when I'm in my 70s.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. So, you know,
Very true.
yeah. So police go to the residence and oh my God. And they couldn't find her. So they enlist Margaret's niece and her husband, so her nephew essentially, to assist by having them enter the residence that night, to just take a look around. I feel like due to her age, it was probably just suspected that she may have fallen or some shit. So the two enter her home and begin searching for her. And it is when the nephew decides to look for her favorite pair of shoes, because obviously if she went anywhere, she most likely would be wearing them. As he enters his aunt's closet, he sees a pile of clothing and notices one of the shoes. He was looking, the one that he was looking for. But upon further inspection, he realizes that attached to the shoe and underneath a pile of crap is the deceased body of Margaret Douglas.
God awful.
Yeah. Margaret's clothes are torn and disheveled, which suggested to police that possible, like, there may have been some sexual assault. They also noticed that she had bruising around her neck and face. It was first suspected that this was some kind of robbery gone wrong because her wallet had been missing. But while the police are investigating the scene, they end up discovering a plastic glove and like by the back of the house, and it looked like the assailant like discarded it. So this makes them think that there may have been another motive other than robbery. So, like with every murder, when they start investigating and there's no clear answer, police turn to those closest to the victim and begin interrogating the family. It is quickly uncovered that Margaret had a friend who would help look after her, and from time to time, he would come by and help with some chores around the house and things of that nature. There was DNA also found on that glove that had been left behind at the scene. So police asked this friend, to submit a sample. And when the results came back, it actually turned out he was not a match. So the search for the killer continued. With very little to go. Were you going to say something?
No. I was just gonna say that's it. Of course.
Yeah.
Like the one time. Oh yeah, we got DNA.
So, with very little to go on, police decided to start looking into smaller crimes that had been occurring in the area recently. One which being a construction site that had been broken into where the person mistakenly left their phone behind. So, when cops trace the phone, it comes up as belonging to a local 18-year-old man. The cops question him, and he very quickly tells them that he wasn't alone and that his 17-year-old friend, Gavon Ramsay, was also involved. This now puts Gavin on police's radar, so they go find him and bring him in for some questioning. During this interview, it is made very clear from the beginning that he is not under arrest and that they just had some questions for him. Also, at this time, I do want to mention that he is not a suspect in Margaret's death, but considering his friend and him are now tied to smaller crimes in the area, he is, not being ruled out just yet either,
Yeah.
kind of deal.
Let's go down that and see where he takes us.
Where
type
this
thing.
leads, exactly. So when police bring Gavin in for questioning, his mom was with him because obviously he is only 17. There are two detectives now present in the room, and it appears the second one is mainly there to just observe, while the other one, is asks the questions and is like the main interviewer, I guess you would say, or interrogator. I don't. Well, it's not an interrogation at this point, so the main
Yeah.
interviewer,
Yeah, it's
I
just
guess
an
you would say.
interview, right?
Yeah. So the detective.
Another word for interrogation.
Pretty much, yeah. It's the one to make you feel warm and comfortable, so you'll talk. So the detective inquires if they know why they are there, and the mom says that Gavin told her about climbing on some church, and he thinks that it has to do with that. And then she says, but because she's like not dumb, so she's like, clearly there has to be a little more to the story because we're at the police station, and simply climbing on a building doesn't.
That's not going to warrant all of this.
Exactly. Exactly, which the detective does agree to. She's like, obviously, yes. And she says she wants to talk about the climbing on the church, but she also wants to talk about the incidents in general that have been just going on in the area recently. So, in the Wadsworth area, there had been an increase of people reporting their cars being rummaged through, and with some reporting that minor things had been stolen, like change and shit. What was even more alarming, though, was that recently there was also a carjacking in the area. So that's a little bit more. Oh,
That's serious.
yeah, that stands out a little more. So the detective inquires about what happened last night. Like she just flat out asks, like, so what happened last night? And Gavin states that he snuck out and met up with his friend Braden. According to him, they walked around, went over to that church, and climbed on top for a bit. And then they hung around the courtyard area before leaving. So right now, he is acting very casual. He's very calm. Nothing to see here, folks. The whole shebang. Detectives know off the bat that he's lying. So immediately, the main detective who's doing the interviewing informs him of this by telling him they know he did more than that because his friend and him left behind plenty of evidence that says so.
You guys are shit criminals, trust me.
Pretty much. So with that, she then turns her focus on a trailer and asks him about it. Gavin is silent for a few seconds, which it's crazy because in this setting, it just feels like an eternity, but it was literally maybe 5 seconds, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is taking
This is
forever."
going on forever.
Yeah, it's so awkward. So he then, after being silent for a hot moment, he admits to going over to the trailer. And now the audio in this is super fucking hard to hear. It was really like, it was so low that even like the captions, that when you put them on, like you can tell the captions at points were picking up the wrong words.
Oh, okay. So
Or
it
like,
must have been real low.
yeah, or like even moments when he's like sniffling, because I'll talk about it. There's parts where he's like crying, and when he's sniffling, it picks it up as music. It's so the caption says music playing.
Music?
Yeah.
Wow.
So like that's just so I kind of had to like read, listen, try to make sense also of what they were saying. Like they like I could
What
tell
they
they
were trying to say he was saying.
yeah, because like you could tell he would say one word, but the caption would say something else. So like that was another kind of annoying thing about it. But moving on with it. So basically it sounds like he says he goes over to the window and pops out the screen, to which the detective asks why they would go in there. Like that's what I could gather when she asks about the trailer. It sounds like he just says like, "Oh, I just, went over and like popped out the screen." But like caption didn't pick up any of that. Like the audio or whatever it's called, the transcript didn't pick up any of
Didn't
that.
pick.
So that's what I could gather. I listened to it a handful of times, and that's what I could get from it. So Gavin responds when she asks, like, why would you go in there? He just responds with an I don't know. And then he goes on a little bit of a ramble regarding how when him and Braden get together, it's not good, and that his mom thinks they're toxic together. At this point, the mom even chimes in and says he's actually not even supposed to be hanging out with that kid. So the interview goes on, and the detective is asking, about specifics of the building. And Gavin explains where they were and describes the buildings they were kind of like fucking around with. And that when they get to one in particular, apparently the windows were cracked. So he said him and Braden started like messing around with it, and that Braden all of a sudden hears an alarm going off, and Gavin was like, I honestly didn't hear it. I didn't even know until Braden's had mentioned, hey, there's like an alarm going off, and then suggested that they both get the fuck out of there, essentially. So they decide to leave. And then that's when they stumble upon the trailer and they started fucking with that. And then they saw a cop walking around the area. So they took off. And then he said they both just went home from there. So he's clearly downplaying the events of the night. No big
Nothing
deal.
really happened. Not a
Right?
big deal.
No big
Got
deal.
some ice cream, moved on.
Just a little trespassing. No harm, no foul, right? So after the detective hears this, she starts asking about some cars that were rummaged through. And Gavin admits that earlier in the night, before the whole church and trailer incident, they were going through people's cars, because he had said like he knows that it was earlier because all the stuff in the building, and that all happened at the end of the night, and they did go home after all of that. So they were doing that earlier. Then she inquires about, doing anything earlier in the week. And Gavin says, no, everything he did was only the previous night. So now the detectives inquire about, the last time he had gotten in trouble. And the mom says that he has had no life for at least the past 3 months because he makes bad choices. He can't be trusted. So he only goes to work and then home. And then she also said that she became aware of him like sneaking out. So she recently had to move his room downstairs closer to hers, and actually to his little brother. And she even says, because like, the younger siblings tend to be tattles, which I thought was hysterical.
That is hysterical.
Like, I love it. Using your younger kid as a spy.
You'll be the one that tells me everything.
Yeah. So at this point, the interview takes a slight turn when the detective starts talking about the carjacking that happened in the area recently. That she explains that this carjacking that happened, the description actually fits Gavin. But when she asks him if, it was him, he says no. Then she asks about Grindr and whether he has ever used the app. Gavin says no. Then she asks him how he feels about gay people, and he immediately shoots back with a I'm not gay. And she's like, that's fine.
Odd answer.
Yeah,
Odd response, I should say.
Yeah, like it was very like he like was sitting there, and then he immediately looks right at her and is just like, I'm not gay. And she's like, Okay, that's fine. She and then goes on to explain like she was only asking because some of the victims just that this happened to be gay, and she, was just trying to establish if that had something to do with it. So then she goes into how that they must have heard about the elderly woman who was also attacked, just casually bringing up like there's just a lot of shit going on in the area. So I'm like, even like, so we have to investigate all of them. I'm sure you guys even heard about the elderly woman who was attacked. To which his mom responds that it was horrifying. And while the mom is sitting there talking to the detectives about it, Gavin is just sitting there and he's kind of leaning over with his like elbows on his knees, and his head is kind of down, and he's like just staring at the floor, not saying a word. And then the other detective in the room, it's kind of actually comical when you watch it because the other detective in the room is literally just staring right at him.
How could you not be if you're
Yeah,
one of them in there? Like,
just clearly observing the behavior. And it's a little interesting too because right after this topic is brought up, but right before his mom starts talking, he's actually sitting with his head up, but his hands are kind of wrapped around his nose area. You know what I mean? Like oh
yeah,
fuck, like it's like an oh
it's
fuck
it's.
kind of way.
I'm covering my mouth at the same time because my mouth is open, going, "Oh shit, oh shit."
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Exactly. And then once his mom starts going into it's horrifying. It was horrifying. Like his head just drops. So
It's
very
not. It's
telling.
not a good thing.
No. So the detective then asks the mom if she knew her at all. And the mom says no, other than like seeing her on the porch, because she did live relatively close. So it was like other than seeing her on the porch. And then she continues to talk about the incident and how terrible it was and how awful it is to make it to 98, which is rare in itself. And then, someone just comes along and thinks doing that is okay. And, like why that's not fair. Like basically, like, why is that the way your life ends? So when she stops talking, I don't mean to laugh, but this next part is just like so damning. I can't. That's the only thing I could say. When she stops talking, the detective looks at Gavin and asks him if he knows anything, and he responds, "quote No, honestly, 5 or 6 people." End quote. And then he's just silent.
The hell does that mean?
Exactly.
That means you went off in your own world
So the
briefly.
detective, obviously confused, follows up with that you talk to is that what
You
you're
killed
saying?
5 or 6 people.
Yeah, like
What happened?
what are you talking about? So at this point, Gavin is crying. We know this because you can hear him sniffling, and he's just not answering her. So she then tries to clarify, like what the fuck he meant. So she says she doesn't understand what he was trying to say, and like, like what are you saying? Basically, like, can you just like make sense of this in a sense, in a way? I mean, so then he says, "quote Never mind, it's not anything illegal."
What is
What?
that? What?
Huh? Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, even when you watch it, it's just so what? It's so weird. It's just confusing. You're like, what the hell is going on? What are you talking about? Like, okay, gonna I
What
don't
the
even know.
fuck?
Yeah, and I just feel like you can tell everybody in the room's super fucking confused. And clearly there is something here, and the detectives know it, so they start pushing him. And I mean, even his mom gets involved, and they're all just kind of constantly saying, if you know anything, now's the time. What are you holding back? And just like, why are you holding anything back? Like things of that nature. And then finally, he goes on a little crying tirade about how he's mad at himself. Now he's going to have to go back to court, and how he doesn't want to live anymore, and he's not normal, and he's put his family through so much heartbreak. He's cost them so much money, and how he's, pretty sure his parents have never been proud of him. And it's like, on one hand, I'm sorry, while watching it, you do like immediately first start to feel like bad for him because you're like, wow, this is really sad. And then on the other hand, you're honestly like, wow, this is super manipulative. And somehow he is turning himself into the victim here and deflecting. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
that's impressive.
Yeah. So, and this, I should mention too, this isn't his first time being in trouble, hence why he's so like
So comfortable. Well,
comfortable
not
slash
comfortable, but
emotional
like,
too about being in trouble. Like like that's when his mom said hadn't had a life or anything because he makes bad choices. It was because he had already gotten in trouble previously, and
Okay.
they had to do the whole like court thing and everything like that. So like his DNA is on file because of it, like all of that. So this isn't his first rendezvous, I guess. So the interview continues, and you can tell he is, kind of growing more and more frustrated with the detectives because, in their attempt to make him feel more comfortable, they are downplaying what his charges will probably be for, the shit he admitted to. The rummaging through the cars and the fucking around at the church, and then obviously the trailer. And so like they're kind of like, it's not technically breaking and it's not, so it's okay. And they're
We'll work with you.
yeah, like they're kind of downplaying it, and he knows that it's bullshit. So he keeps saying that he knows when he goes to court it's going to be worse than what they're saying, and he's getting clearly frustrated that they're doing that. So at this point, like the detective then like pulls back, loops back to the carjacking and tells him, they have video, they are waiting on, like they got like a video thing that they like sent out essentially, and they're waiting on to get back with like the data and stuff. So she inquires again about, the cars and what happened there. So it's like a lot of it's just constantly being repeated, you know, typical. So then to see what they say.
To see if their story changes.
Yeah, and like after like this next time of asking about the cars and when that actually happened, like when was the rummaging of the cars again, stuff like that. The mom asks if they were unlocked or were they broken into, and it turns out the cars were all unlocked. So she asks him then,
Technically.
yeah, so like that's where it's like it's not technically a breaking and entering because the cars were unlocked. So, but you're still like obviously rummaging through somebody else's shit and stealing property, even if it is just change. But that's what they kept downplaying. They were like, it was only some change. It wasn't anything big, like stuff like that. But the mom asks, like, how would you feel if someone did this to my car? And this kid, honestly, within 8 words, you can see exactly who he is. He just looks at her and flat out says, it's their own fault for leaving them unlocked.
Wow. Wow. All right. So it's everybody else's fault.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
That's who. Is that not right there? Who he is?
That's absolutely it.
Like
Everybody else.
Yep. Yep.
So fucked up.
That mentality is disgusting.
Gross.
So the detective asks again about last week, but he claims only last night. That's it. Once again, Margaret's death gets brought up kind of casually, and the detective states that she couldn't imagine he would, do that. And his mom is sitting there shaking her head like, yeah, no, definitely not. Gavon says nothing. He's just looking at his hands. So the mom starts talking about how, the area is usually very quiet with the exception of the one house down the block. And, that one always has cops there, but that's pretty much it. Then the detective again loops back to the cars. Gavon is still quiet while his mom and detective are chatting. Then the other detective asks Gavon about hearing anything at school. And while he's asking him this, Gavon cuts him off and asks if that detective and his mom can leave so he can then talk to the main detective alone. So the two of them step out, and now this is when it gets quite interesting, if you ask me.
Now we get interesting.
So Gavon, still crying, admits to the carjacking, but claims that the version the guy told the cops is complete bullshit, and that's not what went down. He admits to using Grindr, but it wasn't so he could hook up with guys. It was to rob guys trying to get with kids. So essentially, he's a self-proclaimed pedo
he's
hunter.
a hero.
Yeah, he's a pedo hunter at this point.
Okay.
Yes. He says on his profile, he's pretty sure he put that he was 18, but when he was messaging the guy, he told him from the start that he was only 17, and the guy said he didn't care. He also said he told the guy he didn't want to do anything because that was never his intention. He figured since the guy was a 40-year-old trying to get with a kid, he deserved to be robbed and felt justified, which I'm like, I could see that. So then he goes into the details of what occurred. And according to him, he met up with the guy and got into the passenger side with the door still cracked. And, the guy asked him if he wanted to get into the back seat. So he agreed. And when the guy got out of the car, Gavin said he was still in the passenger seat. So he quickly closed his door and locked the car and then jumped into the driver's seat and rolled the window down just a little and started asking the guy, for his wallet. But the dude said he didn't have it, and Gavin wasn't believing him. So then he started going through his glove compartment, but he couldn't find it. And then the guy apparently like grabbed onto the actual like window. So Gavin said then he just like drove off, but he didn't technically leave the area. So he's like, it's not really a carjacking, and it sounded like they were in like a parking garage or something like that, because he said he just like went around to the other area or like up a level and then just ditched the car. So to him,
That
he's like,
sounds parking garage-ish.
yeah, so to him, he's like, it wasn't really like a carjacking. He just grabbed onto the window, so I just like sped off to then like get out and go away. Like I didn't take the car technically, is how he was looking at it. And I'm like, I see your argument, but you still kind of drove away with the
You
car, and that's the
still took the
carjacking.
car
Yeah,
without permission from somebody who was in the, that's
yeah. So it's a weird like backwards type way of looking at it,
I
I
didn't
think.
drive down the block.
Yeah, like I feel like for every action, he's kind of trying to justify it, and it's just like I see what he's trying to do. You can tell like the points or like the dots he's trying to connect with it, but it's still like it's flimsy at best.
Yeah, at best.
Yeah. So after hearing this explanation, the detective inquires one more time about the old woman, and he proceeds to go into this whole thing about how he's a dark person and people are saying he did it, but he didn't do it. And it's making him mad that people are saying that. He then goes on to say he's only been on her front porch when he was like 14 to ask about doing some work for her, but she told him she has nephews and sons who take care of it. So that was it. He's never been back there. He doesn't know anything. Done. The detective then goes into how, well, they have swabbed the entire home. And, if his DNA happens to be there, they will find it. And Gavin's response to this is just a no, like, you won't find anything there. She then asks him if he knows anyone who would do this. And he says the only person he can think of is this guy, Hugh, he works with, because he knows like he's the dude's like known for being crazy. But he wasn't, he's not saying that he did it or anything, but he's the only one that kind of comes to his mind, because when he started working there, apparently like his coworker told him like, don't fuck with that guy. That guy's like crazy. And then he had personally seen him like talking to himself at times or like cursing at himself, but his overall impression of the dude was that he was like all bark, no bite. So it's kind of like one of those like, I'm not saying he's involved, but since you're asking, he's the only one I can think of that
I'm gonna
maybe,
point it that way.
or like he may be depraved enough, but I'm not saying he had anything to do with it. One of those. But yeah, like let me just point the finger at somebody I can think of. So the detective then tells him that since his DNA is already on file because of the past
Because
crime
of
or
his
whatever,
juvies.
yeah, he said he never actually spent time in a
I just meant
facility
like
though. So
record.
like
I
yeah,
just
because
meant a
of
juvenile record.
yeah, just from getting in trouble before. um that she said that she could give his name to like the people who are creating the DNA profile, so when the profile comes in, they can compare it to his, just to rule him out as quickly as possible, and then that should put an end to the people accusing him, because obviously it's pissing him off. So when she suggests this, his tone completely changes, and all of a sudden he's not mad about people accusing him, because honestly he hasn't heard the accusations in a while. But either way, if she wants to give them his DNA, yeah, it doesn't matter. And he tries to play it off really cool.
Fucking idiots.
Like 100%, 180. Like you were just literally so angry and pissed off about this. You said you were. And oh, no,
So,
no, no, I'm
well,
not.
never really heard them in a
Never,
while.
never.
So.
I haven't heard the accusations in a while. In a while, it's probably been like a few days since this woman's been
Well, I was gonna say
unfortunately
this isn't
killed.
like 2 months later.
No. So then he goes off on how his mom and one of his friends' dads thinks it's someone in her family, because apparently there's a will and they, were all in it. Or maybe it was a junkie and a robbery gone wrong. I just feel like when someone comes along and proposes multiple theories.
You're basically saying, look everywhere else.
Yeah, that's not even a little suspect. That's very suspicious. So the carjacking is brought up once again, and basically whether he is going to tell his mom or if the detective should. And then he makes a joke about how his mom probably thinks he's confessing to murder because of how long they had been in there talking. At which point, the other detective and his mom do come back in, and he proceeds to come clean to his mom about, having the grinder count, but tells her what he told the detective, that he's like a vigilante against diddlers. And the detectives, ask about if he's able to recover the grinder account. But he says he deleted it and can't remember the email he used for it. And since he blocked the guy beforehand, he wouldn't be able to access any of the messages or anything anyway, because it's essentially, it like deletes everything. I don't know enough about technology to dispute this, but I feel like at the same time that doesn't sound right. I feel like
I
you can
feel
recover
like
everything,
I
can
feel
you?
yeah. I feel like there'll be a record of that somewhere.
Well, like once you unblock him, wouldn't all of your messages and stuff previous to blocking him just generate again, like be
I
there?
feel like they'd be in a they'd be stored somewhere.
Yeah, because when you block, because I don't know enough, but I'm like, when you block somebody, or like, doesn't it, or like, say, like you block a phone number, when you unblock them, would like say they've been texting you or emailing you, like, like, does that show up all
I
the
don't
old ones?
I don't
The only
know.
thing I have to go off of is the King of Queens episode, because when he unblocks her, all of a
Yeah,
sudden, then like all her
it's like
messages
5,000 emails
pop
will
up.
pop up.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I would think that that stuff gets stored somewhere.
Yeah, like it doesn't just like not get sent.
Yeah.
I would think it gets sent. You get a kickback message that like you're blocked, but then I feel like it's still sent somewhere, right?
And if it does, yeah, I don't know.
I don't
I
know
feel like there
either.
would still be a record of it.
Okay, okay. I thought that sounded weird. I didn't know enough. That's why I'm like, I don't know. Okay, I could be
I feel
completely
like it
wrong.
was that scene and It's Always Sunny with, I don't know enough about the stars to say
Yes,
that you're wrong right now.
that's when the trash and it goes up into the into the
Yeah.
sky. That's how we get stars. I don't know enough. Yes, exactly, exactly. So, and moving on. Sorry. So they all start shooting the shit and talk for several minutes about his job and better places to work. I couldn't make out the name of the business he works for, but they were making it sound like it was either owned by sketchy people or there were a lot of sketchy people who worked there. Either way, they were just casually talking, to him about finding a better place to work and how he seems like a really good kid. And then they basically loop back again to recovering the grinder account, and he says the same thing. And then the detective says she wants to speak to his mom alone for a bit. So Gavin and the other detective step out. The detective at this time asks the mom if she will consent to the police extracting data off of Gavin's phone, which of course she does.
You're fucked.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I could only imagine like the thoughts that were going through his mind when he found out, because,
You're fucked.
like that means they just were like, give me your phone. It's like, what, and honestly, what they find on his phone is shit that, no, like, honestly, no, not only, like, it wasn't expected, but nobody, not even the detectives, could even imagine. We're getting there. Okay. It's a doozy. This one's a doozy. So that ends the first interview. After the data was extracted, there was footage discovered in the form of both pictures and video that Gavin had taken, but it wasn't of the night of the carjacking or any of the other crimes he was involved in that they had discussed during the first interview. The footage was found. Oh my God. It was so disturbing, to say the least. It showed proof of how depraved Gavin was, as well as his clear involvement in another horrific crime that had taken place recently in the area. So the detectives promptly take him into custody and a second interview is conducted. Gavin walks into the room handcuffed and crying. He sits down and is left in the room by himself for a bit. He gets up, crouches down. He's just crying with his face in his hands. The detective walks in, sits down. So then he kind of moves over to the wall and is just basically laying on the floor, still crying with his arm over his face. And the only thing I could think of is he looks like a child, a upset child.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's like in that moment you'd like remember like, wow, he's 17. That's a child crying right there. So the detective just jumps right in and starts talking to him about whether he went to school the next day, and he says no because it was during spring break, so they were off from school. Then the detective inquires about a missing wallet, and his response to this is, "What other crimes I've committed matter at this point?" It is still unclear exactly what incident they are, even talking about, but since Gavin clearly isn't a threat to them, they take his cuffs off and the interview continues. The detective is just kind of flat out asking questions, trying to get clear answers. And, as the conversation continues, it becomes apparent that the crime he is being questioned about is the horrific murder of 98-year-old Margaret Douglas. The detective asks about the underwear, and he claims it must have gotten torn during the struggle. And then they get into more specifics like, where did she die? Was it on the floor? Were you straddling her? Did you use both hands when you strangled her? When did she start bleeding? So clearly, the photos and videos found on his phone show his involvement, and detectives aren't wasting any time and they want answers. Of course, his first version of what transpired is, just the quick overview. He tells them that when he got to her porch, he didn't know he was going to do what he did. So he looked in the window and tried the door, and it was unlocked. So he went in and went into the kitchen. And when he came around the corner, he saw her sleeping, which scared him because he wasn't expecting to see anyone. So when he turned to leave, he said he hit a chair, which made a noise, and that woke her up. And when she noticed him in her house, she started screaming. And naturally, she was reaching for the phone. So by the time he had realized what he was doing, it was too late to stop.
So he just started stabbing and shit. Or whatever.
No.
Strangling.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
So, judging by what was found on his phone, the detectives know this isn't exactly true. So the detective asks about the video they found of her sleeping. If like what he just claimed is what happened, when did he take that video? With this question, you can tell Gavin realizes that they have the evidence and he can't talk his way out of this one. So he admits that he literally admits, I don't even know why I just lied. Like he's like, I don't even know why I just said that shit.
Hey, at least he admitted that.
Yeah. And he then admits that when he saw her sleeping, he took the picture of her, and that's when she woke up and saw him. And that's when the struggle ensued, leading them to fall on the floor. And that's where, he straddled her and tried covering her mouth and then ended up strangling her by what he said was a combination of both pushing and squeezing. After she had passed, he didn't immediately leave. According to Gavin, he sat there in shock for what he believed was around 30 minutes. And when he eventually looked at his phone, he noticed the time was like 4 something in the morning. And, realizing that his mom would be getting up soon to go to work, he snapped out of his like, what the fuck state and jumped into action.
Gotta go, gotta go, gotta go.
Yeah, pretty much. He said he put her in the closet, but he had first taken everything out, then dragged her into it, then put the stuff that he had took out like back on top of her, and that ended up being a combination, it seemed like, of like some clothes and a vacuum. He said he then left through the back door. So again, even though yes, he is providing more information, he is still only giving an overview of what happened. And the detective knows this. So she asks about the glove that was found at the scene and wants to know what the purple stuff was on it.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's. This one's. Okay. So, I'm so cringed. Okay. Now, from what I could gather, and I mean, I could be wrong, but the sense I could make of what they were talking about, it sounds like after he had killed her, he then posed her in a sexual manner or maybe multiple positions that were sexual in nature because they had the photos and stuff. So he like took pictures of her in sexual positions or like in sexual nature or whatever. The photos were sexual in nature. Sorry, this is like really uncomfortable. And then it sounds like what he did was he took pictures of this and then he used jelly, I'm assuming grape because it was purple, to masturbate with over her. Yeah.
Gross.
It's, yeah. So it's just so,
Gross.
yeah. It's just next level. It's just, I'm so uncomfortable. The thought of that is just so uncomfortable. Like,
Gross. What's the matter with people?
this is what I was saying the other day. As a society, we need help. Like, we seriously need help. I don't understand people at all. I don't.
So on a lighter note, it's like beaten off with jelly a thing now or something?
I don't know. Maybe that was the only thing he could find because the kitchen was right there. I don't know. I
So
mean,
that's just like all the things to choose. Like
well, like, yeah, I don't.
it wasn't like
Well, maybe he.
butter,
Well, I'm like, maybe he thought
oil.
it was closer to. I don't know. Is that like closer to KY jelly? I don't know. I've never used condiments before to masturbate, so I can't really like.
Just trying to wrap my head around like
What? Well, in this situation, what would you
let's
use?
see.
You
Let's see.
want
Ketchup?
ketchup?
Got that vinegar. Mustard definitely not.
Ooh,
Mm.
sounds
Some
painful unless you're into that.
mayonnaise. Like
Yeah,
all right, anyway, sorry. The grape jelly. Sorry.
yeah.
Got any peanut butter?
Like totally. This is just like how uncomfortable this topic is. So yeah, after that happens,
I used it to bang a peanut butter sandwich.
he then makes it sound like he had a moment where in the middle of this he kind of like came to and was like, what am I doing? And he said that that's when the shock set in, so he stopped. The detective does ask if he, ever like finished or ever had sex with her, and he says no. And from her autopsy, they didn't find any signs of sexual assault, so like thank God for that. But I don't know. It doesn't change the fact that what he did was still vile as fuck.
Disgusting.
And honestly, because like the whole thing is just so next level that personally I feel like at that point it's essentially the same fucking thing. Like you're disgusting. It's disgusting.
You're gross.
This woman deserves so much better than what, like, you're disgusting. What is wrong with you? Like we are like I don't ugh, we need help.
I got a thing for Concord grapes.
Oh my god. Ugh. So
I'm
gross.
never gonna be able to look at grape jelly at the food store the same.
So he claims his intent was, just to go in for the thrill of being in someone else's home and then, leave and
Well, that escalated quickly.
yeah, for real. He also shared that, well, had the door been locked, he would have just walked away.
Oh, look at that.
So just like the people in their cars,
Uh.
it's her fault for leaving her door unlocked. Like, fuck off, right?
It's my property.
I can't.
It's my property, not yours.
Exactly. I should have
If I want to leave it unlocked, I should be able to and not have to worry that some
sick
prick
fuck.
like you is going to come rolling along like, oh, well, it's unlocked.
Yeah, let me just
I
go
get free
on in
reign.
and have fun. Like, what? No. So he also claimed that he didn't think anyone was home, which I think is complete bullshit because if there wasn't a light on where she was watching TV, there was still a TV on, which indicates that someone's home. Like, no, I don't buy that one for a second. So the detective brings up the wallet again, and he finally does admit to taking it, but he said that he doesn't have it anymore and because he had tossed it that night. So they get into a discussion about what led him to this point, and he says that earlier that night he was out, doing his car rummaging when he thought about a house, and her house just happened to be the one he saw when, the thought came to him. So he also was surprisingly sober during this, which I think makes it even worse. And I also just realized he totally contradicted himself because he originally told her, I just noticed this, he originally told her that he went there to go in because he thought it'd be funny to be in somebody's house without like their knowledge, and then he was just gonna like take a couple of pictures and
Pictures of
videos
him.
of him doing it and then leave. But here he clearly says he was rummaging through cars and then thought about a house, which means you're thinking about rummaging through a
Yeah,
house.
you're not just thinking about going in. You're
You're thinking
thinking
about
about doing the same thing you do to
rummage
the cars.
yeah, rummaging and probably stealing like pointless shit. I just noticed that. Fucking dumbass. So then the carjacking gets brought up again. And it comes out that he wasn't completely truthful about that incident either. He admits that he did end up doing stuff with that guy. From here, he says that when he was younger, that sort of thing happened to him, and says it wasn't rape, but it wasn't voluntary either, and how he was like really confused about his sexuality. And in that moment, my heart does break a little for the younger him, because I don't know what exactly happened to him, but I don't think he's necessarily making it up, because judging by the behavioral issues his parents had been dealing with for quite some time, it does add up and it kind of makes sense. It like I don't know, it just makes sense to me. He's clearly confused. He's clearly angry. So when you like take this into consideration, all the grinder shit, like that makes way more sense now, doesn't it?
It does.
Right. So like but having said that, the Margaret stuff, absolutely not. I don't know like what you were trying to do there. If you were trying to prove to yourself you're not gay, then like go hook up with a chick your own age, right?
Yeah.
So he also said he had never told anyone about the incident when he was younger, and talks about, being depressed and having suicidal thoughts. He also said he was sorry about everything even before he got caught. He said he had been constantly thinking about it, but can't explain his remorse. So, it's coming off as him having no emotion or that he's lying, but that's not true. He's like, I am remorseful. He can't like
I just
show
don't
it.
know how to show it.
Yeah. So the detective asked him, what would he say if Margaret happened to be there right now? And he said he was sorry and that he, never meant for it to happen. And if he could take it back, he would. Then the interview continues, but it's basically them just rehashing topics and going over the same shit they had been discussing the entire time. And while watching it, I started to get really freaking annoyed, because I was like, oh my God, we've already went over this. We've already been over this. This is so fucking annoying. And this made me think of the tells, people have when they're guilty or innocent. Like, the saying, it's like, oh, if you're caught and if you're guilty, like you go to sleep. If you're
Mm-hmm.
innocent, you're up with
Yeah.
anxiety. So it made me think, so like, have you ever noticed how people who tend to be guilty, even when claiming they had nothing to do with it, they don't necessarily mind constantly talking about the same thing over and over again?
Yeah.
Like they'll constantly get asked the same question, and they have no problem. They have answers for everything. But when people who are innocent, they react annoyed and frustrated that
Like,
they're
how
getting
many times am I answering the same fucking question?
yeah, yeah.
Change the wording all you want. It's the same question. I'm not answering it again.
I already answered that. I already answered
Yeah.
that. So that made me think of that. Like, oh, I wonder if that's another, like, I don't know, like if that, I've never heard anyone say it's a tell, but I feel like that
I wonder.
definitely could be seen as a tell, because I just feel like I was
Turns out
watching
the
it.
guy was just really fucking patient.
Well, I was getting fucking annoyed because I'm like, oh my God, how many more times are we going to talk about the cars being rummaged through? Like, it was just getting so annoying. So that's what just made me think of it. So I wonder.
Yeah, I wonder if
I,
there's anything.
I wonder if that's just like a little bit of a flag or whatever.
Yeah.
But I feel like the people who are like get frustrated and innocent are the ones that they push even harder on, because they just treat them like they're guilty, because that's just what they do.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and they like abuse people mentally for like 18 hours. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. I think it's illegal to do that now.
Get a lawyer.
Yeah, no matter what, don't say shit. Whether innocent or guilty, don't say shit. Lawyer is the only words you should be saying. Figure it out after that, but just say lawyer.
No.
I just think of a dollar bill. Lawyer. Lawyer. Like, so that's the only thing anybody should ever do. Moving on. Sorry. So the interview is kind of starting to come to an end. And I don't really remember how it got brought up, but Gavin says that he had planned on running yesterday, but didn't because his insurance payment was due. So his money went to that, and he didn't have the money to run at the time. So instead, he was actually planning on running this coming Saturday because he knew everything was going, to come out soon because obviously they had his phone. So he was just planning on going to Tennessee and like just disappearing, which I just found odd. I just found it like odd. Or like just is that the young brain? That's the young
That's
brain.
gotta be.
Like just thinking, which I feel like he was so young, he probably could have just disappeared. Um and just
Mm,
started
but still,
working
yeah.
somewhere else and been just fine, but like, it's just funny to think that it's just like as if it's just so easy, you know? Like how much money are you really making that you think you can just disappear?
I got like $1,000. Is that not good enough?
You know? So the detective wraps up the interview, and from here, Gavin was booked and charged as an adult with murder in addition to aggravated burglary, kidnapping, and abuse of a corpse. In November of 2018, he pleaded no contest, and during the trial, it came out that Gavin had been struggling with some mental health issues. His mom had told the court that she was trying to seek help for her son and was having him attend counseling. His parents also suggested that the incident was the result of Gavin taking medication that was prescribed to him in error for his depression. During the mom's testimony, she stated that her son had been both in and out of trouble as well as counseling for the past 10 years. I'm going to make a side note here. Judging by her timeline, this is why I think there is truth to his claims. And it's
Yeah, that.
probably safe to say this was around the time
Yeah,
he was sexually abused, molested, whatever it was. Because that means he was probably like only like 6 or 7.
yeah. He was a youngin.
Yeah. And I mean, that's extremely sad. Again, for the younger him. That's just sad.
That's horrible.
So, she said that he had started therapy back up after the principal had reported some concerns about Gavin potentially, hurting himself. And after this, the psychologist recommended he be put on Zoloft. So his mom stated that between the months of January and March, the amount being prescribed kept being increased and that her son's behavior started to change, like noticeably change. And in my mind, probably because he didn't need fucking medication in the first place. It's one of my big fucking issues with mainstream mental health. Like, if there's a clear cut reason for someone's depression, they don't need medication. But that's an entirely another
It's a whole
topic.
different thing.
Yeah, it's neither the place or time. So, moving on. His mom noticed that Gavin started becoming increasingly irritable and hostile shortly after taking the medication and said she noticed he started saying like bizarre things. I'm not sure exactly what those
What
bizarre
the
things
fuck does
are.
that mean?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what that means, but bizarre enough that she noticed. So it has to be something. And nobody knows, she knows her kid better than anybody. So not knowing what else to do, I feel so bad. I really, truly feel bad for her because not knowing what else to do, she kept, taking him to counseling. But she did start to do her own research on Zoloft. And what she actually found was quite concerning. She ended up finding information about the drug that recommended it not be used for treating depression in adolescents. So, with that discovery,
Hey,
yeah, she ended up taking Gavin off the drug. I mean, rightfully so. I would have been pissed if I was her. So, I'm sure she probably was. But it's hard. You're at a loss. Like you're not equipped to deal with with that in your kid, and then here you take him to somebody who you think is going to help, and it
surprised the pharmacist didn't say nothing either.
what what is it? But he's the pharmacist.
You know, they're the
But
ones that know
he's
the things.
doctor. So
Doctor,
you know,
pharmacist.
so it's one of
I'm gonna
those.
go with the pharmacist.
So I will say this though, to solely blame it on the medication, I don't necessarily think that's accurate. I do, however, think, as most things in life, it was kind of a perfect storm situation. I think Gavin was a confused and angry teenager because of what happened to him when he was very young. And honestly, without the knowledge of where his behavioral issues were stemming from, no one, including his counselor, they didn't know how to give him the help he desperately needed. And unfortunately, combining his mental state with a medication that probably had negative effects, it only escalated an already fragile mind.
Yeah, it makes
Like, it's
sense.
just the perfect storm. It's a very unfortunate perfect storm situation.
Yeah,
Simple as that.
it's horrible.
Um, that doesn't negate his responsibility. I feel like that came off as if I was like,
No, it's not excusing it. It's
yeah,
just saying like, hey, you know,
like there's no real reason, but I feel like that could like
this probably didn't.
this contributed. Yeah,
Yeah,
like yeah, I'm like he's still responsible, and I totally think he should pay the price and everything like that. The kid's a piece of shit at the same time.
fine.
Like that's so I just feel like that could be misconstrued. So Gavin did state that he couldn't explain why he did it, and that if he could, he would take it back in a heartbeat. He said he felt terrible for what he had done, and that he constantly lives with regret and shame, as he should. Um, and on January 18th, 2019, Gavin Ramsay was found guilty of all charges against him and sentenced to life without parole, to which he showed no emotion. I feel like they very rarely do. Gavin received this sentence due to the fact the courts found him unfit to re-enter society, and since he was a minor, that was the max he was, eligible to receive. The judge actually stated, quote, "The crime was depraved and premeditated and of a nature not previously seen in this community," end quote. He did appeal, and his defense argued that the court failed to consider his age and his ability, to reform. This was denied. However, though, 2 years following his sentencing, Ohio Senate passed a new bill that would grant parole eligibility to all individuals convicted of violent crimes, including ones that were sexual in nature and murder, as long as the individual had served like anywhere from 18 to 30 years. So, and they had to obviously commit the crime under 18. So,
Oh, so only the minors.
yeah. So, since he was 17, this now actually, because of this bill, does make him eligible regardless for parole. The courts deemed him eligible after 25 years. And after looking at his records, he is currently scheduled to go in front of the parole board in February of 2043 with a parole eligibility. So, like, if he was to get it granted, if it's granted, right? Yeah, if it's
Yeah,
granted. The date of that would be April 9th, 2043. And if released, he will be 42 years old. Still a full life you could live at that point.
yeah.
Crazy. Although when you've been incarcerated
I feel like he's institutionalized at that
from
point.
from
It,
17 to
it's
42,
it's. I feel like it's rare for
that's all
somebody to
you
come
know.
out not institutionalized,
Yeah, like I just
especially because you're gonna be in like you're
I
gonna
wonder
be
what the
hanging out with some
success
bad
rate
people.
is for people like that. Definitely didn't work for Manson. I know that much.
Yeah, I wonder. I wonder how many people got paroled
Yeah. That
out
would
of
be interesting to
those.
look into.
Like,
Um,
how many were brought up in front of the parole board, and they were like, "Yeah,
yeah,
you did horrible stuff, but it wasn't."
but you were only 14 at the
But
time. I should. I'm gonna look into that.
you did 30 years, so we're gonna.
You're good.
Yeah,
Yeah. I just
wonder.
it would be interesting also to see just like the life, like how many the success rate, I guess, and like the reoffend percentage and stuff for people who have spent more than half their lives
Behind
in,
bars,
yeah, because
yeah.
like I said, the only person I know like it didn't work out, Manson, that was Manson. He spent more than half of his life behind bars and reform schools, all that shit. And then when he was let out, he begged to stay, and they were like, "No, dude, you got to go." But he didn't know any better, and then he went on to obviously be Charles Manson.
I
So
only know the institution.
yeah, so like that's what I'm saying. Like I wonder, like what that would be just interesting, like a statistic or something to look into. Just like what's the success rate of people like who have spent more than half of their lives, more time in jail than you were born.
Then free.
Like that's
Yeah,
insane.
it's crazy.
So in the meantime, though, Gavin is serving his time at the Grafton Correctional Institute in Lorraine County, Ohio, while two families are left devastated and shattered after the events that took place in the early hours of April 6th, 2018. And that, everyone, is the disturbing murder of 98-year-old Margaret Douglas. And with that, you know what that means. It is now time for our shithead of the week. So, Adam, who do you have for us?
I got this guy named Jacob.
Oh,
It's from a few years ago.
Jacob.
In Alabama.
You're in fucking Alabama.
Yeah, he worked at a gym.
A gime?
A gym, yeah, and supposedly this guy got accused by some woman of taking pictures of her as she was getting ready to get into the tanning bed at the gym.
Oh, that's not cool.
Yeah. So she filed a complaint, and this dude got interviewed, and he admitted it. He was like, "Yeah, I got a foot fetish."
Oh, that's weird.
He was like, "I got a thing for feet." So yeah, whatever.
Is it weird that I'd be like relieved? Oh, you were just taking pictures of my feet.
Yeah, I feel like that's way better
I'd be
than
I still would be like, you're a fucking
You-
creep, but at the
that's
same
not
time,
as
I'd be like,
bad.
whew. He's only taking pictures of
like
my
he's a
feet.
foot pervert.
That's I can wrap my okay.
Like your feet show up on the internet, whatever. Their feet.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what
like,
I
I'm
mean?
like, okay,
You're like, it sucks, but they're your feet. You know.
interesting.
Yeah, admitted it and was like, yeah, whatever. Not a big deal. Aggravated criminal surveillance. I didn't know that was even a thing.
Oh, whoa! So that sounds like those serious aggravated.
It wasn't. It didn't seem all that serious. It sounded more serious than like.
So is that a?
Because I don't even think it was.
misdemeanor?
I don't even think it was a felony.
So what did he get, like probation or some shit?
Yeah, something like that. Fucking foot fetish, foot perverts.
To casually just admit that too is interesting, which kind of makes me think like there was,
Probably wasn't the first.
or it wasn't true.
Oh, if I get caught.
Yeah, just say this. And then like they're probably so uncomfortable with that being the reason that then they probably just move quickly past it. I feel like that could be like a deflection.
Oh, you're a toe guy. All right, we're good. We're good here.
I don't understand the feet. Like what makes people turned on by the feet?
I don't know.
Like I feel like yeah, I just don't
So many parts to a body, and that's what you decide to land on.
Especially because the majority of feet are disgusting. Ugh. I'm just thinking about like gross feet now. Well, I mean,
All
also
sweaty and stinky.
at least, well, because don't people like in Modern Family when they buy like the sweaty gross shoes, right? Isn't that like a
Yeah.
thing? People probably really do that, and I know like you can do the thing because they did it on what was it? They did it on one of the shows. Was it Real Housewives or was it Vanderpump Rules, where they all did like accounts and it
To
was
sell
foot stuff. So
pictures
they
of
had
their
like
feet?
yeah. So it was like they had. I think it was Vanderpump Rules, and they did like ones with like just their feet, but like spaghetti on them and stuff like that. Like
What the fuck?
and they were trying to sell their like feet photos.
I ain't trying to rag on you if you're a foot person, but what's the matter with you?
I'm just so curious about people who have like
Why?
weird fetishes and like kinks and stuff. I'm like, how did you first discover that you were into that, and where did it start? That's my thing. I'm more interested in like the psychology behind it all. I'm really curious about that.
Look at those little toes. They really turn me on.
There's literally a market for everything.
There really is.
All right. On that note, thank you everyone for listening. And if you liked hanging out with us, let us know by rating and reviewing us. Tell your friends, and don't forget to follow us on Spotify, Apple, Instagram, and YouTube. If there is a case you would like us to cover, hit us up at uafrpod@gmail.com. And until next time, please don't be a douche.
Keep your shoes on.
Ooh, see ya.